In the quiet town of Cedar Ridge, Sheriff Eddie Stone was more than a badge and uniform. He was a rock in the community, someone whose very presence seemed to keep chaos at bay. A devoted husband, a father of two, and a fixture in local life, Eddie had been serving the town faithfully for nearly 2 decades. But one crisp autumn morning shattered the peace Cedar Ridge had always known, as the lifeless body of 19-year-old Mallory Horace was discovered by the riverbank. It was the kind of scene that felt out of place, like an intrusion from some harsher world that didn't belong in their tranquil town. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle, a mystery wrapped in silence. Mallory, a young Jewish girl with dreams that stretched far beyond Cedar Ridge's quiet streets, was the child of immigrant shop owners who were respected but kept to themselves. She was ambitious, vibrant, and in many ways an outsider, often restless for something more than the confines of her small-town life. Her death was sudden, but what truly shocked the town was the tangled truth that began to unravel beneath it, a truth that was tied directly to Sheriff Stone. As the investigation deepened, whispers spread, and a darker picture began to take shape. Beneath Eddie Stone's solid, dependable facade was a secret life no one had imagined, an affair with Mallory. Their relationship, hidden in the shadows, had set off a chain of events fueled by deception, betrayal, and ultimately, tragedy. Cedar Ridge was the kind of place that didn't have scandals, let alone tragedies of this nature. Life there was predictable, steady, a comforting rhythm that rarely skipped a beat. People prided themselves on their close-knit community, where newcomers were watched but eventually accepted, and most residents went to bed each night knowing they were safe. Yet hidden behind that sense of security was a story that would fracture the town's very foundation. Eddie Stone's personal life, once the epitome of the Southern family ideal, had unraveled long before Mallory's death. His marriage to Susan, once passionate, had faded into routine and distance, his commitment to family eclipsed by his commitment to duty. Susan's devotion had shifted to their children and her social circles, leaving Eddie to drift in his loneliness. It was a distance that Mallory unknowingly stepped into, searching for her own escape from her family's traditions and small-town expectations. In their unlikely connection, they found a forbidden refuge, a relationship that, while fleeting and risky, somehow gave them each a glimpse of a life they both longed for. But secrets like these never stay buried, and as the truth began to surface, the quiet town of Cedar Ridge found itself in the grip of a dark and harrowing reality. What lay ahead would uncover not only the tragic end of a young life, but a betrayal that cut to the heart of the community, forever altering its people and the sheriff they once trusted beyond question. It was a chance encounter that brought Mallory and Ethan together. One day, there had been a small theft at the Horace family store. Ethan was called to investigate, and it was during that routine visit that he first met Mallory. She was polite and respectful, but there was something about her that caught Ethan's attention, an intensity in her eyes, a sharpness to her words. She wasn't like the other young women in Cedar Ridge, and that intrigued him. In the weeks following their first meeting, Ethan found reasons to stop by the Horace family store more frequently. What began as casual conversation between the sheriff and a young woman soon turned into something more. Mallory would ask Ethan about his work, his life in law enforcement, and the stories of the town. Their interactions were subtle at first. Innocuous questions about the law, light-hearted banter about the small-town gossip. But with each passing conversation, an unspoken tension began to build between them. Mallory's fascination with Ethan grew, not just because of his position as sheriff, but because he represented a world that was so different from the one she had grown up in. For Ethan, the attraction was undeniable. Mallory's youth and vitality were intoxicating. She made him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. At home, his marriage with Susan had become more of a partnership than a romance. They shared responsibilities, but the emotional and physical connection had withered away long ago. Susan was a devoted mother, but her focus on the children and the community left little room for their relationship. Mallory, on the other hand, made Ethan feel wanted. She listened to him, challenged him, and admired him. He couldn't help but be drawn to the excitement of it all, the secrecy, the danger, the thrill of being with someone so much younger. What began as an innocent friendship soon crossed the line into something far more complicated. One night, after a particularly long day at the sheriff's office, Ethan found himself driving past the Horace family store. It was late, and the town was quiet. He saw the light still on in the store and decided to stop in. Mallory was there alone, closing up for the night. They exchanged a few words, but there was a tension in the air, a tension that neither of them could ignore. Ethan knew it was wrong. He knew that if anyone found out, it would destroy not only his career, but his family. But in that moment, standing in the dimly lit store with Mallory looking at him with a mix of admiration and desire, he couldn't walk away. He leaned in, his hand brushing against hers, and that was all it took. Their first kiss was tentative, but it was enough to break the dam that had been holding back their emotions. From that night on, their relationship changed. They began meeting in secret, sneaking away to neighboring towns where no one knew them, exchanging texts late into the night. Eventually, their physical relationship deepened. The affair was everything Ethan had been missing in his life: excitement, passion, and the sense of being wanted. But as thrilling as it was also dangerous. Ethan was a public figure, and Mallory was the daughter of a devout Jewish family. If anyone found out, the consequences would be catastrophic. They both knew the risks, but the pull of their attraction was too strong to resist. As the weeks turned into months, the affair between Ethan and Mallory intensified. But with the passion came the weight of secrecy, and for Mallory, the burden became unbearable. She had always felt torn between the expectations of her family and her desire for independence, but now she was caught in a web of lies that threatened to unravel her entire life. Mallory's parents had begun pressuring her to marry. They had already started introducing her to potential suitors within their community, young men from similar backgrounds who would uphold the family's values. Mallory, however, had no interest in marrying someone chosen by her parents. She had dreams of going to college, of seeing the world, but she knew that those dreams were slipping away with each passing day. The affair with Ethan had given her a sense of control, a way to rebel against the life her parents had mapped out for her, but it also made her feel trapped. She knew that their relationship couldn't last. Ethan was a married man with a family, and she was too young to be caught up in something so complicated. The guilt gnawed at her, and the fear of being discovered kept her up at night. Ethan, too, was feeling the pressure. His double life was taking its toll. At home, Susan had noticed the changes in him, his late nights, his increasing distance, his mood swings. She didn't know the reason for his behavior, but she knew something was wrong. The affair had consumed Ethan's thoughts, and he found it harder and harder to keep up the facade of being the perfect husband and sheriff. As Mallory pulled away emotionally, Ethan became more desperate. He didn't want to lose her, but he knew that their relationship was on borrowed time. They both knew that something had to give, but neither of them was prepared for what was about to happen next. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, comment with number 1, and if not, drop a number 0. Your feedback will help me improve the videos every day. Let's keep going with the case. It was early one Saturday morning when a local jogger made a grim discovery. A body, half submerged in the shallow waters of the Broadleaf River, lay still and motionless. At first the jogger thought it might have been an animal caught in the river, but as he got closer, the unmistakable shape of a human body became clear. The jogger immediately called 911, and within minutes, the Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Department was on the scene. Eddie Stone arrived, his heart pounding in his chest as he approached the body. The sight that greeted him sent a shock wave of terror through him. There, lying in the cold water, was Mallory Horace. Her face was pale, her clothes soaked, and there were no immediate signs of trauma. To anyone else, it might have looked like an accidental drowning, but Ethan knew better. The fear that had been building inside him for weeks now turned into full-blown panic. He couldn't let anyone know about their relationship. Not now, not ever. The local coroner, Dr. Harold Banks, arrived on the scene and conducted a preliminary examination. There were no obvious signs of violence, but something about the scene didn't sit right with him. Mallory's body was too still, too peaceful, as if she had been placed in the water rather than having fallen in by accident. Dr. Banks ordered an autopsy, and the body was transported to the county morgue.